Welcome to the Kill Count, where I count every kill and every death in the games I play. Today, I'm playing God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, released as a free DLC in 2023 by Santa Monica Studio. Taking inspiration from roguelites such as Hades, Kratos is mysteriously invited to the shores of Valhalla, where he's forced to fight through familiar foes while reflecting on his past and considering his future. How many enemies will we tear through during Kratos' convoluted therapy session?
This is all gonna work out just great for you. I can feel it.
I begin by selecting Show Me Courage difficulty, but no cowardly dog can be found in these parts. Instead, we cut to Kratos and Mimir rowing by a partially submerged throne and begin the first chapter titled The Invitation. Mimir inquires why they're here, but much like me at any social setting, Kratos says he doesn't know. We learn that prior to all this, Mimir urged Kratos to discuss his intent to come to Valhalla with Freya. However, Kratos is under the impression she doesn't really want to chat with him, despite Mimir telling him otherwise. Echoing the chapter title, Mimir then goes on about the mysterious invite that brought them here, and Kratos finally spots the black sands that make up the shores of Valhalla. Soon after exiting the boat, Kratos is stripped of all powers and abilities in classic God of War format, and we proceed forward until a large door blocks our path. Our boy Kratos has been getting hooked on Norse though, and reads the text out loud. Thankfully, Mimir is there to translate for us that are not fluent.
To be one's own master.
That's always been how Kratos lives, and right here is no different when he elects to pry those big ass doors open. He comments on how he feels weaker after getting so aggro on the doors, and Mimir tells him it's likely Valhalla punishing him for the B and E he just committed. This is where our first enemies appear, and during the fight you can really feel the impact the nerfing has on Kratos, even getting his shield taken away from him. Regardless, the first two raiders are put to rest, before I'm free to select my first perk of the game. Once chosen, we move into the next room, where three Draugr away and get a right lashing from the Blades of Chaos. In the third room, Kratos and Mimir find their first sanctuary, which changes and matches various realms we explored previously in the past games. This is often where Mimir and Kratos chat back and forth to provide more details on the story. Like here, when Mimir tells Kratos that Freya would have come and aided this venture if he would have worked up the balls to ask. Kratos is hesitant due to a request Freya has made of him though. But for now, the conversation ends there, and I get properly effed in the A by an Einherjar in the next room. Kratos immediately wakes up on the shore of Freya, and her trio of Valkyries scolding him for busting into Valhalla like a naughty little boy. Apparently, the entrance is secret, so Freya demands to know who told him about it. So he hands over a note from someone unknown, with directions and a challenge. Kratos requests Freya's assistance inside, but since she's never died like a couple of fools in her presence, she is unable to enter Valhalla. She explains that this realm sees right through Kratos and will draw on anything from his past while he undertakes these trials. Sigrun then offers to show him how to properly open the goddamn door instead of forcing it open like some sort of psychopath. Now, without the penalty of breaching, Kratos is significantly stronger and more like his old self. However, this is the area we begin our build by selecting a shield and a rage ability to bring inside. We also chat with Gunnar and Eir, who impart some wisdom and expectations for our upcoming quest. They hang back within this area and will tell stories of their past. It's definitely worth listening to in between runs. The beginning of this game was admittedly pretty rough for me while I got used to the combat again. It's been over a year since Ragnarok came out, so just give me a break here, okay? My next run starts with another 5 kills as I make quick work of the first 2 rooms. The third room is always a sanctuary, and this time we finally learn what Freya's offer to Kratos was. She asked Kratos to serve as the God of War on a peacekeeping council she is trying to put together, but having that title and power again frightens Kratos and makes him hesitant to accept. The next few rooms bump that kill total into the 20s and show off some of the only drop near kills I get in the entire DLC. During this, Kratos tells Mimir that he doesn't need to be a God of War and will simp for Freya no matter what. Mimir says that's completely understandable, but holding the official position shows the gods and people alike that Kratos is committed to them. Eventually, we locate the sands that take us to the upper levels of Valhalla, where a familiar throne and voice echo out.
You recognize your old seat, don't you?
Haha, yes. It endured plenty of stank-ass farts, and I don't miss it. But the annoying voice is too much, and Kratos' head rings so hard he winds up back on the shore. Freya is there to explain that sometimes Valhalla believes if one has gone far enough, they are apt to get bounced to the beginning for shits and gigs when we finish the first chapter. This opens up some new options in the hub world that allows us to gain permanent upgrades and further customize Kratos by altering his armor and weapon appearance. My next 2 runs are less than stellar, as I get get killed off by a raider and an Anhiriar before I could get to the next level. I am able to nearly double my kill total during these 2 runs and kill off the first of Valhalla's Chosen, who are stronger enemies that must be flatlined before advancing to the next level of this realm. Things continue to get interesting when the first sanctuary I enter reveals the judges of the underworld that gatekept the underworld until Kratos destroyed them and released the chain. Kratos explains to Mimir who the judges are and what the throne and that voice from earlier means. Mimir believes the throne is meant to reflect the anxiety Kratos has about taking up his old position again and urges him to consider Freya's proposal. As I begin my next run, Sigrun offers a bit of lore on Valhalla, explaining that the section we're seeing is largely disconnected from the main neighborhood of Valhalla where the dead party their asses off. What we're experiencing is a gauntlet that people must face in order to gain entry into Valhalla, with each one being personalized to the individual. This attempt starts off fine and dandy as I get kill after kill, and Mimir continues trying to convince Kratos to accept the God of War position, but then things go all cattywampus and a thunder punch from Valhalla's Chosen sends me right back to the sandy shore. My next run is a lot more successful as I go through several rooms annihilating a good variety of enemies, while Kratos bugs Mimir about his romantic life with Sigrun. The sanctuaries were some of my favorite bits because I loved the back and forth between these two. Listening to Kratos be somewhat normal and chastise Mimir for disparaging himself and not allowing himself happiness based on assumptions of what Sigrun wants is fantastic. What Santa Monica did to Kratos resulted in one of the greatest character progressions I've seen in a game series. Turning him from an edgy ragelord into a contemplative and introspective man is fascinating to see, and despite what series creator David Jaffe thinks, this is the best version of Kratos. Once Valhalla's Chosen is turned past tense, I enter the sands and find myself face to face with my first boss fight. I pop my boss cherry against the captain of the Anhiriar and take him down in under a minute, which allows entry to the throne room yet again. However, this time we get more than just a voice, and instead swap one head attached to our waistband for another. Granted, Helios has a right to be angry with how Kratos bitched him, but his pissy demeanor doesn't do him any favors in gaining sympathy. Soon afterwards, Kratos opens up another set of massive doors and finds himself back in Greece. There's not a lot to explore here quite yet, so I head into the sands, which sends me to a corridor that Helios is quick to remind Kratos about.
Wasn't this the Chamber of Sacrifice? Where you let an Athenian soldier burn to a crisp?
Homeboy has talked his shit, and now Kratos is going to make a divine sacrifice using his head, putting it into a cage to prepare for what's to come. And I won't be counting the body that's already in there because that was counted in the first God of War. This is the point in the game where I got extra hyped because the undead legionnaires show up looking awesome. Then to add on to the trip down memory lane, another rage ability is unlocked, and with it comes the motherfucking Blade of Olympus, baby! Watching Kratos get up to his old shenanigans has Helios shaking in his boots? Scarf? I don't know, but then suddenly Mimir's in his place, and Kratos hurries to free him before the fire can cook the smartest man alive. They're rocked by an explosion and find themselves Tom Pettying into a whirlpool of light. Mimir believes the end is nigh, but Sigrun flies up in style with her wings on fire to get our guys back to the shore again. She's damaged, but she'll heal, and we get the opportunity to go again, where I die early, but in return, gain a fair amount of kills and another boss fight. My next run is even less successful, netting 27 kills before I'm offed by the first boss I face. It was all worth it for this exchange when Mimir continued to justify his self-sabotaging with Sigrun though.
She deserves the best.
Then why should she not deserve the smartest man alive?
When I start again, I hack and slash my way through each room until I reach Mr. Knotson, this time coming out on top with a vicious snap of the neck. 4 grams push that kill total closer to 200 as I finally get back to the Greek section, but upon my arrival here marks the return of an unwanted visitor.
Make yourself useful. Say what you see in battle.
Aye aye, asshole.
This time around, I'm locked out of the sands and must defeat 3 of Valhalla's Chosen in order to pass. This gets my kill total over 200 with a mixture of Norse and Greek monsters. Once I touch sand, I'm brought back to the Chamber of Sacrifice, which brings even more classic Greek beasts for Kratos to tear apart, with Harpies and Cyclops making their return. Intent on not breaking Valhalla and repeating an unwanted freefall, Kratos instead plops Helios down safely and locks himself in the cage to be be cleansed by fire. One flash of light later, and Kratos is in another location with Mimir, and as he turns around, none other than the real Tyr is there to greet a fellow god of war. The invitation to Valhalla came from him, so Kratos can work through the complex feelings he has about becoming a god of war again. Tyr claims he understands exactly how he feels, and that he once struggled with what he's going through. He found the answers he needed within that set of big-ass doors, but before Kratos can see what's behind them, he must defeat Tyr. After about 2.5 minutes, I bring Tyr to his knees, and he yields to his colleague, granting Kratos access to the door. Soon after he opens it, his tinnitus goes crazy, and he returns to the shore yet again. As always, the next run begins with 5 kills in the first 2 rooms, but afterwards, things get a little bit different. Kratos is presented with a pool that shows the day Kratos sold his soul to Ares, with Tyr mentioning it as a canon event in Kratos' life. But Helios has something else to say about it.
Probably to make you feel like the piece of shit you are.
Throughout this run, Tyr and Kratos discuss this moment and how it set Kratos down his path, but he wonders why Tyr wants him to take up his old position. He refers to himself as a relic of the past, whereas Kratos is known as the one that prevented Ragnarok, and as a god that the people can rally behind. That has him feeling good as hell, gleefully slaughtering elves, Draugr, Einherjar, and every Norse beast in between, until the troll Mikliamunr stands in his way and puts an exclamation point on it. As soon as Kratos ascends to the upper levels of Valhalla, he's brought down a peg when Helios appears on his waist and insults him for being smooth-brained enough to make a deal with Ares of all people.
You ever try to do the math on how many people died as a result of your little collaboration?
Well, I did. Kratos takes the Oath Stone and opens the way to Greece, where he needs to kill even more of Valhalla's chosen to face Tyr, gaining 19 more kills in the process. Upon entering Tyr's arena, he unleashes a new weapon on us, informing Kratos he has weapons from far-off lands, and pulls out the Maquahuit used by the Aztecs. After a few minutes, Tyr is defeated again and materializes a pool between them to go over Kratos' commitment to Ares. He has Kratos elaborate on what would have happened if the barbarian army won that day, learning that they would have moved further into Greece and committed atrocities against them. With that in mind, Tyr tells Kratos he made a decision to protect his people, but Kratos sees it as a way to justify his actions, which leads him right back to the shore as he's not quite ready to go through those doors. After the first few kills of the next run, Kratos is presented with yet another pool that shows a key moment in his life. He's killed many gods, but none received as brutal of a death as Helios. It was so savage that people and gods alike discussed the legend of Helios' murder for years afterwards. Kratos says he needed his power to continue his campaign against the gods, and of course Helios has to butt in and say his death caused the death of many more Greeks. Each run has its own focus on Kratos' story, with this one revolving around the sun god. He tells Tyr his death wasn't personal, despite him being a dumb little fuckboy, and that it was a means to an end. He knew the sun would go out as that was a primary plot point in Chains of Olympus, but he didn't care, because his vengeance was more important to him. I only have to go through 2 rooms this time before fighting the boss, but both have more enemies than usual, which gets me up to 280 kills in all. At the same time, Tyr provides some perspective, admitting to Kratos that he only took the God of War position because he thought he'd be a positive influence inside, and figured that was more important than validating Odin's power. Before ascending to eventually face Tyr another time, we face the first boss of this run. Thor's son Modi shows his face to the surprise of both Kratos and Mimir, and for a second time, he gets added to the kill count. Right as we make it to the upper levels of this realm, Helios reappears to remind Kratos that he once saved his life when Kratos nearly died to restore the sun. This causes Kratos to sort of apologize to Helios, not for killing him, but for the way he killed him. That just pisses the former sun god off, and he utters a line that encapsulates the entire Kratos is soft now crowd.
Do not do that again. Nobody wants to hear that from you.
Crispin Freeman returned to voice Helios, who played him previously in God of War Ascension and God of War 3. He was a highlight throughout this entire DLC with how contemptuous he sounds all the damn time. You can almost feel the hatred he has for Kratos for ripping his head off. We take Helios' shield and proceed to the Greek levels, taking on enough monsters to bump the kill total over the Spartan-friendly number of 300. This run reintroduces a couple classic monsters from the originals, with both Wraiths and Minotaurs coming back in glorious over-the-shoulder perspective. This time, Tyr brings the Egyptian Kopesh to the fight along with some legionnaires. Kratos fells Tyr yet again, and the pool reveals Kratos restoring the sun and his sacrifice to do so. Kratos doesn't understand the importance of this, as it all happened before he went on his revenge tour. Tyr reminds him that goodness is not something that simply happens and something one strives for. Young Kratos was not equipped to deal with the misfortune that was dealt to him, and that with experience his current self contains the wisdom to do so, but he must go back to the shores one more time before he's ready to open the doors. Freya is there to tell him she does not wish him to change, and believes his presence on her council will be enough to impact the realms positively. I noticed during my playthrough the game seems to offer perks to whichever weapon you prioritize. It's not 100% the case, but more often than not I'd get axe or blade perks since I utilize them the most, and on this run I elected to use the blades. This final chapter is focused on fatherhood, with Pandora appearing in the pool. She reminded Kratos of his own daughter, and he did what he could to protect her, but she ultimately became a pawn in the feud between the gods. The boss fight before Ascension is Thor's other son Magni, who falls just like his brother for kill number 324. Kratos remarks later on that he believes the reason Thor's sons are manifesting inside Valhalla is because of regret he feels in their killing. Like Kratos, Thor is a destroyer and did not give his sons a fair chance, whereas unlike Magni and Modi, Atreus got that chance, and it saddens Kratos to know things may have turned out differently for them if circumstances were changed. Kratos takes the Pandora figure and proceeds to Greece to lay the smackdown on Valhalla's chosen some more. Tyr this time pulls out a katana, and this fight kicked my ass the first time around. I mentioned the blades earlier because this build fucking sucked for this fight, but I was able to cop a couple more kills before getting murdered by the centaur that Tyr brings in halfway through. Feeling a bit like Cobb in Inception, I wake up on the shore one last time. I fight some Draugr in the first room and pick up a familiar key that was once carried by a ship captain from Kratos' past. There's not a whole lot of story content during this run until the end, instead focusing on the repeated murder of various Norse and Greek monsters, with the boss fight being Vali, a roided out version of a traveler. I reached Tyr again and made sure this run utilized the Leviathan axe instead, and the decision paid off well, slaughtering the centaur and legionnaires he brings in for the final 3 kills of the game, and finishing the job against Tyr himself. Again, we look into the pool, showing Kratos that even though he mistakenly released the evils of Pandora's box, he ultimately sacrificed himself to release hope onto the land once more. But it is up to the individual to guide their own actions and to learn from past mistakes. Tyr deems Kratos ready to peer inside the doors, where he finds a younger version of himself atop the throne. This results in a powerful scene where Kratos talks at his past self, blaming him for the atrocities that he committed, while recognizing that he was once that man.
You have always been more than what others saw.
Through simply talking out loud, Kratos comes to the realization that he will be in service to the people, and that will be his focus, not the power that the position gives him. Christopher Judge kills it here, and even though it's less time than his Game Awards speech, it packs a hell of a punch. He commands even more respect for his decision to decline Santa Monica's offer for him to voice young Kratos during this scene. He did so out of respect for T.C. Carson, who helped make Kratos a gaming icon. I'm unsure if they even reached out to him to voice the part, since they clearly had dialogue in mind for him, but considering things didn't really end well between Carson and the studio, he may have chosen not to come back and reprise the role, which is a damn shame, since that would have made this scene so much better. Kratos approaches the throne and sits, then tells Mimir he just wants to chill there for a while. The camera pans out and we fade to black as the credits begin to roll, but once they're finished, we watch as the God of War emerges from Valhalla's door and tells Freya he will sit on her council. This is the end of the story and where I stopped, but if you choose to continue, you'll get the ends of Ir and Gunnar's story. Sigrun will take off on a quest of her own since she believes Valhalla will not allow her entry even in death, and some dialogue from Kratos expressing regret over his treatment of the ship captain. That's where things conclude, with Kratos becoming the God of War yet again and filling Valhalla with bodies. So let's head through those doors and tally them up. I finished the Valhalla DLC with a total of 395 kills. My preferred weapon was the Leviathan axe, taking out 35% of the enemies, with the Blades of Chaos eliminating 29%. Surprisingly, the most encountered enemy throughout the DLC is the Legionnaire, making up 16% 14% of the total kills. It was a welcome return of the classic Greek cannon fodder Kratos killed so many of in his past. I died a total of 7 times, with the Einherjar and Raiders getting me twice each. That gives me a kill-death ratio of 56.43. It took me 6 hours and 26 minutes to beat the game, which gives us a kill on average every 0.98 minutes and a death every 55.14 minutes. This DLC was an awesome surprise made even greater because it was free! Santa Monica could have easily charged $15 or $20 for this and it would have done well. I was also surprised at how much narrative content there was because I kind of expected a straightforward roguelike version of Ragnarok that was entirely focused on combat and creating various builds to go through the gauntlet. This was a pleasant surprise I really hope we see more studios take part in, but that's just wishful thinking. Thanks as always for watching. I'm King Deschain signing off for now.